Brant, I want to know your thoughts on not only, and I know we've talked about this before, is the season a failure if they don't beat Alabama, if they don't win a college football playoff game. But I want to know your level of importance right now for Michigan to win this football game in just a matter of days.
I'll go 7, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking out of 10 here, right? I would say that's probably what you're going for. Okay, so I would say 7 out of 10, importance wise. And I put a 7 on it because I think next year a lot of things are going to change this offseason. Michigan's going to be a perennial playoff contender, whether it's with 9 wins or whether it's with 10 wins or whatever it's going to take to get there. It's going to be a tougher Big Ten, obviously, but Michigan is going to be in a 12-team playoff 9 out of 10 years, is my guess, Dave. At bare minimum, they better be there 8 out of 10 times. So this going to the and this is the other part of it, Dave. Going to the playoff for the last 2 years. Have you seen a change in recruiting rankings? Because I haven't. There's not been an uptick there. Michigan hasn't needed to make the playoffs to field a good team. They fielded a good team and then made the playoffs. It doesn't work the other way around. Michigan's program is steady. They are consistent right now. They bring in high school talent, they develop them, and they plug holes with the transfer portal. Really, how every other program should be doing it. NIL seems to be where it needs to be. I'm not advocating to pay high school players, and I don't think other programs should be. That's how Miami does it. Miami wins 5 games a year. I have no interest in that. I think that Michigan's doing things the right way. Sure, we cheat to win. I don't care. But that's a little joke there for you, Dave. But it comes back to the fact of this program is not defined by this game. You don't win 3 straight Big Ten championships and look at this team or look at these coaches and say they're failures. They didn't win a national championship. That's not how that works. You don't call Georgia's season this year a complete failure because they lost to Alabama in an SEC championship game by 3. That's just not how the college football world should work. So I think if Michigan goes on to lose this game, I think they'll look at it and say, that's very disappointing. There's no doubt about it. But it's Alabama at the end of the day. Alabama had the number 1 ranked class last year, Dave. So you talked about all the true freshmen that make a difference for them, and there's good reason. They're great players. There's great players that play for the Crimson Tide. We're not immune to that. We've seen it for years, Dave. Nick Saban has had a staple program for the last 15 to 20 years. He's done a great job. But that's where we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to Alabama status. Michigan is not at a tier 1 A plus territory right now. They don't recruit with Georgia. They don't recruit with Alabama. They don't recruit with Ohio State. Those teams are perennially great because they recruit so well. We don't recruit as good as LSU. And these are just facts. So Michigan has to develop players. So I don't think that our program is defined by a win or loss on New Year's Day. Now, let me talk quickly about what a win would mean. A win would go a long way in these kids' careers as Michigan football players. And I want it for them as bad as I'm sure they want it for themselves, because guys like Blake Corum, guys like J.J. McCarthy, guys like Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinner's not going to play, but guys like him, guys like Chris Jenkins that stay in a program and they grind away and they find ways to win ball games. It just goes to show and validate everything that they've done in their career. A Big Ten championship is great, but these kids have seen it before. They need to be hungry for the next step. And that's where it comes into getting to a national championship would change those kids' lives forever, basically, Dave. And I really want it for those kids, and I hope that the coaching staff does right by them. You touched on it a little bit. I don't think this coaching staff is all together next year for multiple different reasons. But I think there is going to be some sort of shakeup. There's going to be a breakup. This is 3 years of a culmination of work. When you lose to Georgia, we kind of sat around and said, well, they were the better team. this sucks, but we were happy to be invited. Thanks for the party. Against TCU, that was the utter definition of all Michigan fans collectively being pissed. Like, you were very upset at that loss because that was a game you shouldn't have lost. This year, if you lose to Alabama, I think the word I would use is disappointed. And none of those go along with the terms of being happy. So I think at the end of the day, that to have good vibes in this program, you obviously have to win the game. But that goes into next year, and it goes into the year after that if you can get to the national championship, Dave. So it will go a long way for the culture of the program, but I don't think the culture is defined by a loss on Monday night.
So I got to disagree with you, Brant. I feel like, I mean, you mentioned, like, was this a disappointment or a failure of a season for Georgia? And you said no. I think if you ask all Georgia fans, they're going to tell you absolutely yes, because they don't care about an SEC championship or anything. They're on a different tier. They're competing for national championships. And this is the difference right now with this Michigan football program and the step that they need to take. And you're right, Brant. They're going to expand to 12 teams next year. There's a high likelihood that Michigan should be a perennial contender for that 12-team playoff. But Michigan has also been a perennial failure in the postseason to win any of these games. So who am I to believe that Michigan is going to face Tennessee next year in a 12-team playoff and beat them? I don't have confidence that that's going to happen until I see it done in 6 days. And I just want to reiterate the importance of them winning this game, because if Michigan is who we think they are and who we think they've been, and everything that you said about recruiting is 100% spot on. Those are facts, as you said. But we're about to find out whether the Michigan recipe works or not. We know it works in the Big Ten. Brant, the Big Ten was one of the worst conferences in all of college football this year. There's no argument in that. In the Power Five, they were horrible. Look at Michigan versus Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. An absolute embarrassment to the Big Ten. Okay? Who did they beat? Penn State? Ohio State? I don't know. Does Penn State go and beat Georgia? Do they beat Alabama? Like, no.
It's not my fault that they don't play anybody in the non-conference.
I
they should
understand.
play someone with the pull. They should play someone with the pull. So your point would be a little less valid, because if we knew who they would have played in the, like, if you would have played Oregon State in the non-con, we would at least know more about this team in a game that isn't in the Big Ten.
Sure. But the bottom line is that we don't. We think we know. And this is kind of my point. We think we know that this is, and I think you could ask any Michigan fan in the last 20 plus years, this is the best Michigan football team that they have marched out onto the football field. And so with that being the precedent and that being the starting point, they're playing an Alabama team that we all agree is not the historically best Alabama team that they're going to play. But yet here we are saying, I don't know, though, it's Bama and it's recruiting and all. Well, when does that tide change then? Okay, because they've got to do it this year, especially as we're talking about conference expansion, college football playoff expansion. The road isn't getting any easier. Okay, and so Michigan absolutely has to win this game. I don't care about the name Jalen Milroe, about Dallas Turner, about any of these guys. Michigan has no excuse to not go in and win this game. If Mikey Sainristil, if Chris Jenkins, if all of these guys that we're like, okay, they're not the 5-star guys, they're the guys who were built in-house in the program. Well, we're about to find out, Michigan fans. We're going to find out if that recipe works or not. Because the first year seems like, okay, like you said, we were just happy to be invited. Like, we get it. We're not ready yet. Last year was unacceptable. Third year in a row, and you're going to tell me that this is the best Michigan football team that we've marched out on that field in 25 years, and we're somehow like, it's not a disappointment if you can't beat Alabama? You can't beat Alabama? This is not the Bama that we have seen year in and year out. I want no excuses from this team, this program. I don't want to be talking a week from today and say, look, we just weren't quite there yet. Okay, if that's the conversation, then I'm going to be like, So what is the recipe? Is the goal to win the Big Ten for the rest of our lives? Like, is that the goal, or is the goal to win a national championship? And I think that's the question that Michigan fans have to ask themselves. What is the goal? Because I've moved the goalposts for me personally. I'm happy with the season. I love beating Ohio State. I love winning a Big Ten championship. Don't get me wrong. But for me, it ain't good enough. You've got to win this game. You've got to win it. It doesn't need to be emphatically. I'm not asking you to go in and blow out Alabama in the Rose Bowl, but you got to win this game. It's critical for this program. Go ahead, Brant.
Does that mean you're a 10? Because that felt like, because that felt
Go
like
ahead
you
and
were.
put me at 11. Put me at an 11.